Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to show you how to install Apache, PHP, and MariaDB on your Raspberry Pi 4. And as an actual bonus, I'm going to show you how to install a multi-site hosting on a Linux operating system. And in this case it's going to be on the Raspberry Pi. A disclaimer though, I don't recommend doing this depending on what kind of sites you're planning on running on your Raspberry Pi or the multiple sites you plan on running. You could run into a few hardware or bandwidth constraints and eventually kill your SD card or your Raspberry Pi altogether. Now you can plug in an SSD to it and do all that with the new Raspberry Pi OS update. But in this case here, we're just going to have a regular running Raspberry Pi using the standard SD card for this. In this case, I'm going to show you how to go step by step from a fresh Raspberry Pi install, as you can see here. And I'm going to also recommend you, I'm going to go over a few security measures and pre-requirements that's needed for the installation. So I would recommend you watching my video on how to secure the Raspberry Pi before you do any of this and you release it to the wild. Because there are people out there who always are looking for exploits, and if someone was able to exploit your Raspberry Pi that's in the wild, they're able to get into your network and cause some major damage. So if you haven't seen my video on how to secure a Raspberry Pi, I recommend you going into it. The link is down below in the description, so if you want to check it out, I do 100% recommend you doing that before proceeding. If you're doing this in a lab environment and it's never going to actually see the internet, you're just trying to learn how to run your Apache server from a Raspberry Pi, then you can just go ahead and proceed as usual. Also, I want to let you know that doing this, you can run this on any version of Linux, whether it's Debian, Ubuntu, Mint, Fedora, Red Hat, and so on and so forth. And like always, everything that gets done in this video will be down in the description below. I will have a PDF created of everything we do inside of my Google Drive. So all you have to do is open that up and you'll find everything. And to give you an idea of what that actually looks like, I already have most of it written out here. So it gives you pretty much step by step on your host name, your static IPs if you need to do it, everything step by step on how to do the install from start to finish. The only thing you have to do is obviously change website names and stuff, but we're going to go over that all in this video. So without further ado, let's get everything rolling and get Apache installed and have a little bit of fun today. So the first thing I want to do is I want to show you here I have a folder called web. I have website 1, website 2. Now in the case you would call these exactly the domain of your website. So VM Advisor or Tiny Tim PCs or however you may want to call it. So I'm going to open up my little how-to here so you guys can see on the screen as well as we go step by step of everything here. So as you saw in the Word document I just posted on the screen, everything that's in there is in here. So just to make the video go by a little bit quicker, I'm just going to do a lot of copy and pasting from here over to this. But again, everything that's in here will be available for you in my Google Drive below. Now again, you want to make sure you have a static IP. So let's go ahead and take a look here. As you see, I'm all staticed up. Next thing we're going to go is we're going to check out my host name. So I'm going to go to Raspberry Pi config. And as you can see here, my host name is all set up. And as you saw before, as you can see here, I'm going to go ahead and open up a command prompt. You see I have a new username. I recommend doing that as well. Do not leave it as Pi. If you're using it in a lab environment, this is okay. But if you plan on doing this in the wild, please change the root user from Pi to something else. Delete the Pi user or disable the Pi user and give the same groups to your new created name. So mine's VM Advisor. I have all the same groups that Pi has, and on this computer itself, Pi has been removed completely. So when I do post this on the internet for people to go log in and check everything out, I don't have to worry about people trying to hack in my Pi account to change everything. So in this case, I'm assuming everybody has already went ahead and done all that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the actual prereqs. Now you can see here we're going to want to add a certificate. We're going to want to add a key, and then we're going to want to add a new source list for PHP. If you're not planning on using PHP, you don't have to follow this, but I usually like to do this because you never know. In the future, you may want to actually end up using PHP on your website, so you want to go ahead and add all that. And if you watch the entire video from start to finish, you're going to notice that I use sudo for certain things. I use sudo for not certain things because I just want to make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be. So from there, we're adding the certificate. And it should be done in a second. Now we're going to add the GPG key. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy the source for PHP 7.3. Now, in your case, it might be something later. You're more than welcome to go to the PHP's website and they'll let you know what version of PHP you have or which PHP is available. All right. Now, the next thing you always want to do is just update the system so that everything took place with that. So you don't have to upgrade, but you should have upgraded before we did everything to begin with at the beginning of this site. You should always do all your updates before you go ahead and do any kind of installations of everything, just to make sure you have all the newest security patches into it, all the packages are up to date, so when you want to do the install, it's not going to be an older version of Apache or PHP or something that might cause problems during this video. Alright, so here I have 128 packages ready to be updated. So in that case, I'm just going to go ahead and just type in upgrade -y. But for this video, I won't have to do this because I've already went ahead and done this earlier this week, and I don't want to do it again because we're trying to keep this video short as possible. Alright, so now the first thing is first, we're going to go ahead and we're going to install all the software we need. Oh, went ahead and did that wrong, space, there we go. Alright, and now like I said, what this is installing is your Apache web server, your PHP for your Apache web server, and your MariaDB, which is pretty much MySQL databasing. So we're going to go ahead and let this run, and once it's done, we're going to go ahead and start the MySQL secure installation part of it. Okay, so we went ahead and installed the 3 pieces of software we need, so now we're going to go ahead and secure your SQL. Okay. Now from here, we're going to hit enter because we don't have a password. We're going to go ahead and create a new password for your database for root. Okay, we're going to remove anonymous users. We're going to disable remote login. And we're going to also delete the test database. If you're new to the MariaDB, you're more than welcome to keep it. This is just a preference. All right, we're going to go ahead and reload everything. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and restart Apache. Okay. So now it's time to test it out. And you got 2 ways of testing it out. First, open up your Chromium or your web browser of choice. And you're going to type in localhost. And if you receive this page here, it works, and there you go. We have pretty much completed everything. It's letting you know here that the index file is in here. This is the default. So the way it's going to work here, just to give you an idea, is right now everything you do is going to be inside this folder. So if you're only going to host one website, all your directory stuff is going to go inside HTML. Okay, I will show you later when we do. If we're going to plan on doing multiple sites, we're going to end up changing this information. But if you're just using a single website and you want to update everything, you're going to do everything inside here. The only problem is we don't have access to that because we're root, and we're going to have to fix that problem, which is not a big deal. But also, if you don't want to use localhost and you want to make sure you can actually see this from the outside world, you're going to want to type in your IP address, your static IP of the server. And again, if you receive this on your static IP for your Raspberry Pi, you know it's working, and that I can see it from the network at least, not from the outside world, but from at least from the network. If you get an error saying they can't find your IP address here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you quickly how to fix that. So you can go type in sudo nano etc hosts, and inside here you're going to want to go down to the bottom here. And this is probably going to say 127.0.1.1. Okay, you're going to want to change it to the IP address. So the RPI web server.local. We're going to change this information, and then when we do that, it's automatically going to populate the new information for you. Okay, So next thing we got to do is we got to give ourselves ownership of the HTML file so we can go in there and change it and do what we want to do, which is again very simple. Okay. So you want to go ahead and type in sudo chown VM advisor. So in that case, I want to change owner. The username I want to change it to, in my case, is VM advisor. Yours could be something different. But it shouldn't be Pi if you're going to do this in the real life, out in the wild. It should be something else, but it could also be Pi if you're doing this in a lab environment. And we're just going to go ahead and type in var www html, and there we go. So we're going to actually go ahead and just take a quick look at it. So I'm going to open up a web explorer, www html. Oops, went too far. Properties, permission, and there it is. You don't have to worry about the group, but we have to worry about the owner, because the owner has access to change everything. Everybody else can view it, and that's fine. In our case, though, we want to make sure we're the owner so we can edit this file. So now, if I want to copy and paste, so I'll just go here. Just got to move that a little bit. So, for example, if I want to copy and paste my website 2 information, actually, I think this one's smaller. So I'm going to go ahead, copy. Just for my case here, you don't have to do what I'm doing, but I just want to rename it. Paste. Okay, now again from here, we're going to go ahead and restart Apache so it takes, and let's see what happens. And look, there's my website. Let's go back to localhost, and here it is. So if all you're planning on doing is just a simple website yourself and a single site and you want to know how to Apache, you're all technically done right now. This is everything you need to do. Now you can go ahead and upload your site, do what you have to do to fix it, change it around. And the only thing you have to do every time you do a change is just restart Apache for your server. Now, to quickly give you an idea how you can broadcast this to the world, is you're going to go into your router and you want to port forward 80 and 443. It's only 80 technically for this website, but again, if you want to add SSL, and which I do believe you should, you're going to have to port 443, and then you're just going to point it to your IP address of the Raspberry Pi. So in my case, it's 172.16.1.200. All right, so with that information, I'll be able to do what I need to do and see it from technically the outside world. So when I type in the IP address of my modem, my public IP, I'll be able to see my website. Then you'll be able to go on to, like, an example, GoDaddy.com, and inside your domain, you can point that actual domain directly to your IP address you have hosting everything. So you don't have to pay for internet hosting if you don't want to for a simple site. Okay. So that's how you install a single page or a single site website on your Raspberry Pi. And in the next video, or technically in a few moments, I'm going to teach you how to, change it to be a multi-site for your Linux OS, or if you want to try on your Raspberry Pi, you're more than welcome. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the second part of the video, which is how to create a hosting for multiple sites. So the first thing we want to do is we want to give ourselves ownership of the var/www file, directory. At this moment, we do not have access to that. So we're going to type in sudo change owner, your username, and then var www, and that's it. So now we have ownership. So now we're able to add sites to it, change things around, and do what we have to do, which is perfectly what we want. All right. So now the next part of it, we're going to have to put our sites into the www folder. So in this case here, as you saw, I have website 1 and website 2. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to type in sudo mv for move, the directory where it's stored. So in my case, it's on my desktop under website 1, and we're going to put it in the var www folder. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and press the up key and then just change it to website 2. All right, and now just to give you a little insight, when you're doing this, website 1 and website 2, you want to name them your domain. So in my case, my domain is website1.com, website2.com. You could be the vmadvisor.com, tinytimpcs.com, amazon.com, google.com and stuff is where you're going to want to end up changing these names to it so you don't get confused later on. But for this video, we're just going to make it very simple. Now again, we're just going to go ahead and just show you that in here, and here's our two websites. So there's website 1 and website 2. And you can see the HTML folder is in here. We're just going to leave that one alone. It's okay. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and delete everything because I don't want the system to get confused with what I did earlier. Perfect. All right, so we're going to close that out. All right, so now we're going to want to jump into our sites available folder, because from here, that's going to let us know how to set up the virtual hosting NIC for our Apache server. And inside that folder, you have two files. You have your default and your SSL default. So in our case, for this video, we're just going to work with this folder here. But I do recommend, if you do have your SSL certificates and everything, that you should go ahead and add that. But I'm going to probably do that for another video at a later date. So from here, we're going to want to add two files. We're going to want to add the two config files for our website. So in my case, it's sudo nano website1.com.config. You do want to keep this information here, but this will change to whatever your domain is. So this should be, again, your domain.net. Okay. In hindsight, I probably should call it domain1.com.config, but it is what it is. I hope everybody's understanding where I'm coming from. Okay, so in here, we're going to want to add just a couple of quick little lines. So this is telling you that we're running a virtual host on port 80, the server name. Okay, this name could be really anything you want, but I usually just keep it exactly what the actual name is. Server alias, so when I type in www.website1.com, it knows to look in this folder, which is website 1, when it pings this host. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save it. And then we're going to do the exact same thing for website 2. So we're going to press up, change that. All right. And then we're going to copy. Now, there are other things you can add to this. You're more than welcome to go to Apache's website, and they'll go ahead and explain the sites available and how to add other features in here if you want to, like information about the site, anything that you need to know, the webmaster addressing, and so on. But we're just putting up two very simple sites that we just want people to just say ooh and ah to, and just for bragging purposes, honestly. Okay. So now that we went ahead and did that, now we got to go ahead, as you can see here, we have our two added. Now we want to go ahead and disable the default, because we do not want it to just default to that one directory. And then we want to go ahead and enable these two. Now there are probably some people saying there's probably there's an easier way of adding these two together, and technically there is, but we're not going to get that crazy. We just want to make it very simple for our first-time users. So from here, I'm just going to go ahead and disable 000.default.conf. And then if you did it correctly, you'll be prompted with a disabled notification. If it doesn't say disabled again, make sure you check your spelling. Or again, if you're copying and pasting it directly from my guide, you should get the results that I have above. Now we're going to go ahead and enable website1.conf. You'll get the enabling site. Perfect. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do the same exact thing again, just by pressing up, changing one letter in my instance, and we're good. And now I'm going to want to go ahead and restart Apache. Okay, and there you go. So as long as you receive no errors at this point, Apache has been restarted and running. So now what I want to do is I want to edit the host file. Okay, so that it knows where the sites are and what they're supposed to be talking to, which is very simple. You more than likely don't have to do this in a non live environment. So if you're actually going to be, if you're doing this in a live environment, you wouldn't have to actually do this. But in my case, I'm going to have to, because I don't actually own website 1 or website2.com. So I just want to do a little configuring. Also, it's not a bad idea to have this as well, so that your system doesn't get confused as well. So we're going to go sudo nano etc hosts. Beautiful. And down here at the bottom, 172.16.1.200. Again, your numbers should be different from mine. www.website1.com. And then do the same exact thing underneath it for your second website. Now again, you can add up to 10 websites if you want, but remember, it is a bandwidth constriction and you shouldn't be hosting that many sites on there unless I guess you're a site hosting farm like GoDaddy. But if you're doing that, then you wouldn't be doing this on a Raspberry Pi either. Okay, now after I do that, I always like to restart Apache just to be on the safe side, but it's okay. Now, as you can see here, I have 127.0.0.1 for this. And the reason why I have that there is because if you don't want to type in the IP address of it, and you just want to test it locally to make sure it's working properly, you would type in that. So in case being here, what I'm going to do is, so in my case, I'm just going to kind of just give you a little bit of an idea. So in this situation, I'll just do 127.0.0.1 www.website1.com and 127.0.0.1 www.website2.com. Okay. So in this case here, I've checked out these, so these will not work, and then it's going to go ahead and look for them. So when I type in website 1 and website 2 under locally, it'll work. But if I go out to the to a computer on my network, it won't see the websites. So it depends on how you want to test it out. So I'll go ahead and just show you briefly. So when I go to here, www.website1.com, and there it is. Okay, and then just because we want to make sure that I'm not trying to pull sheep's over wolf's clothing or whatever they call it, here's website 2. And look at that, it's a full copy of Super Mario Bros. Before it got taken down by Nintendo. But as you can see here, I have my website 1 and I have my website 2. Okay, but if I try to do this, say for example, on another computer, so let me go over here to my Windows computer and bring it up. So if I go here to www.website1.com, it actually does work. So I'm a liar. Oh, never mind. These are old caches. So let me just go ahead and open up a private view. Okay, so now, unfortunately, yes, don't ignore that. That's from a previous video I did. www.website2. And again, I've been called out as a liar. So it is actually functioning the way it's supposed to be. And we go ahead and play a little Mario. Okay. And as you can see here, that's pretty much everything we need to do to host 2 different sites. But as you saw on the video here, see how slow it's running? It's got that bit of lag because it's using a lot of compute power with it. So now think about if you had, say, 10 people log into your Raspberry Pi to do this. It would never move. You'll crash it, you'll burn down and everything. But it doesn't stop you from using it on Linux or something like that. And you can see here, this is actually a full functioning game. And my other website is just a simple blog site or template site. So, just to recap everything we did, I went ahead, showed everybody how to install Apache on your Raspberry Pi. And then as a bonus, I went ahead and showed you how to install a multi-site on your Raspberry Pi. And then gave you a couple of demonstrations of how it works. So as we said before, I prefer not to use it this way. I was always told that 127 wouldn't work. So at the end, my video made me a liar, which is actually good because at least now I know for future references. If I can go ahead. So I hope everybody liked the video. I hope it was informative to anybody out there who's new to doing Apache on their Raspberry Pi or just new to their Raspberry Pi. I hope it helped out anybody who's got a little bit of questions about how to set up a multi-site on a Linux operating system. As I explained to you, this is very basic. There is a lot more you can do to add to it. But if you just want to say, hey, I got 2 sites on my Raspberry Pi, check it out, and help you out with finding work and jobs and everything else, that's wonderful. I always like to hear people are actually doing better and all the time. So if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. I try to cover everything I possibly can with Raspberry Pis, with Linux, with virtualization. Pretty much anybody comes up with an idea and it's feasible in a virtual environment, I give it a shot. So I want to thank everybody for joining in today, and I hope you all have a pleasant day.